Rafael Devers instantly transforms the San Francisco Giants. He was introduced today at Oracle Park. He's in the lineup, batting third. He's willing to play anywhere, which was not the case in Boston. Why?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And coming up on today's show, we are going to give our instant reaction to the Rafael Devers introductory press conference today, how he changes the Giants team and instantly he goes in there into the lineup. We'll get into the lineup and what impact I would expect from him right away. And then also the whole saga in Boston, what went wrong and why right out of the gates, it's not an issue with the Giants. We'll explain why that is. So Devers is introduced today with Buster Posey, Greg Johnson, Zach Manassian, and others, Erwin Higuero, and who else was up there? There were a lot of people up there. And my goodness, was it an exciting day for the Giants organization. Barry Bonds was in the front row. You had a ton of members of the media, including Boston media, and the Giants players were up there on the club level for this press conference. And so and then Devers himself just smiling the whole time, looked very happy to be there. And so this is one of those cases where, change of scenery is just exactly the right thing. And this is a superstar hitter who just fell into the Giants' laps. And I honestly am still in stunned disbelief about it. Yesterday, we got into the numbers. Our internet access was not so good. I was in Tahoe, not expecting huge, major breaking news, which happened while I was on the road. Had to pull over and record a video to react to this. But yeah, Rafael Devers, left-handed bat, one of the most lethal hitters against right-handed pitching in the major leagues. I've been tweeting out just tons of stats on Twitter at Ben Kaspick. Since 2019, Rafael Devers debuted at the age of 20 in 2017, and his first couple of years at age 20 and 21 were so-so, and then he broke out in 2019 at age 22, and he's been great ever since with the bat. I mean, since that time, he's hitting .284, and keep in mind, I said this yesterday, but the league average batting average is like .244. So the .284 average is like really good in terms of batting average for players these days. And then a .356 on base, which is just very, very solid. And the most outstanding attribute of Rafael Devers is the power that he provides. And if you just look at the doubles totals year after year, I mean, he hit 54 in 2019, 42 in 2022, 34, 34, 37. He's got 18 this year. He has 15 homers. He's hit 33 homers, 38 homers, 32 homers as a 22-year-old. Just an exceptional talent offensively. But if you look at the numbers against right-handed pitching since 2019, minimum 2,000 plate appearances, the top 10 weighted runs created plus numbers, Rafael Devers comes in sixth behind Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman. And he is ahead of Bryce Harper, Corey Seager, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So, and I must point out, he's held his own against lefties. He's not as lethal against lefties, but let's put it this way. The Giants overall as a team have a weighted runs created plus of 96, I believe it is. Yeah, 96 this season, meaning they've been about 4% below league average offensively. And Devers in his career against same-handed pitching, which is the tougher side, has been, well, I don't remember the career numbers. It's a little above average. But the last several years, about 11% above average when there's a lefty on the mound. 11% above league average production. And when it's a righty on the mound, forget about it. And that's why I said also following that up was like this ultimately he should hit between Elliot Ramos and Matt Chapman, both of whom do really well against left-handed pitching. And then it becomes just a serious problem for opposing teams to deal with those three hitters back to back to back. And then you also add Jung-Hoo Lee and Willie Adames and others in the mix there, and the Giants lineup is just so much better with Rafael Devers in it. It's just hard to even overstate. So since 2019, I just must say 293 average, which ranks sixth. Against right-handed pitching. 372 on base, which ranks 10th. 571 slugging ranks 3rd. And a 278 isolated power ranks 4th. And so I said this yesterday, kind of off gut feel without looking at the numbers, but I've seen it written about as well. So it's not just me, and I'd have to look closer at the numbers to verify. But this is like the biggest power threat the Giants have had since Bonds himself. And sure enough, Bonds was there in the front row welcoming Devers. And Devers said he got nervous around Barry Bonds. It was just a happy occasion. I mean, Dave Fleming gave him a round of applause. Dave Fleming's brother does Red Sox radio or television and said that he loves Raffy Devers and that now Dave is like, I get to call him now. And it was just a happy occasion from ownership to Buster to Devers himself to his teammates. And it's just this trickle-down effect from bringing in Buster Posey to head baseball operations, which was a very unorthodox and bold move. You do not see guys with very little to no front office experience just inserted into the top baseball operations position. It was kind of unprecedented, especially for a superstar player like Buster Posey. But I think it has made all the difference in so many ways, because you think about the fact that, like Willie Adames, it's worth pointing out that the signings that Buster Posey made in the offseason, they haven't panned out so much from an on-the-field standpoint. Like Willie Adames's bat has not been good, and it's a 7-year contract, and so you kind of worry about that down the line. But his personality and just the vibes that he's, I think, brought to this team, and like I really feel like when I was reading so much into what went wrong with Devers in Boston, why this trade happened, and if you don't know the story, we'll get into the full story today, but I think that they were expecting it was a clubhouse issue, but not an issue that stemmed necessarily from Devers himself, in my opinion. One that was largely the Red Sox fault, and also just they wanted him to be personality-wise something that he's not, something that maybe Willie Adames is, and so Devers doesn't have to be that kind of guy here. And so we will continue to explain what I mean and break down everything that happened in Boston and why it's different here in San Francisco. Like, I'm not just exaggerating or just saying that. He literally said, I'll play anywhere, when in Boston, that was not the case. That was the whole problem. And so we'll explain why that is different here in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supply House, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts From 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled pros are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We are going to continue to get into the saga that went down with the Boston Red Sox and Rafael Devers and how it all fell apart and why it's different here. It's immediately different here. I mean, he could have come in and been like, I'm not going to play anywhere other than DH. That's all I can do now, you know. And that's basically what he said in Boston, but there's a reason for that. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down Rafael Devers' first game as a San Francisco Giant tonight, hitting third, DHing, yes, against the Cleveland Guardians. Oh, no. When I say, oh, no, I can't pronounce this guy's name from the Guardians. Ciccone. I can't say it. But Cecconi, right-handed pitcher against Robbie Ray, who's been so good. And so we'll be breaking that one down, talking Rafael Devers. Hopefully he makes an impact right away. That would be awesome to see. But just to continue my point, that this is like a straight line from Buster Posey to this acquisition of Devers, and Devers being happy to be here. Like, can't keep a smile off his face. Everybody's in a giddy mood. I think it started with Posey. Like, it has everything to do with Posey. And what was missing in Boston is not missing here with the front office. And so you sign Willy Adames as Buster Posey. And one of the biggest things he mentioned that about Adames is that he's a connector of people. And it's an intangible, right? I mean, you talk about contracts, you don't often discuss when you're an analyst type, like most people in front offices are. I'm an analyst type, but I also understand like that Willy Adames is in fact a connector of people, and his happy nature is like probably a big reason why the Giants have been successful, despite his bat not really being productive through the first half of the season. So Adames is here. He's friends with everybody except Jesse Winker. If you saw the postseason last year, they got into it about something. Former teammates. Don't know what the story was with that exactly. But Rafael Devers and Willy Adames have known each other for over 10 years. And so Adames immediately was texting with Devers about how excited they were that he was joining this team. And immediately there's just that connection. And that word, connection. Buster Posey mentioned it, a connector of people, Willy Adames. And so he connects Rafael Devers, who doesn't speak as good of English as Adames does, who's fluent in Spanish and English, which I think is a big part of that. And in fact, when the Giants signed Adames, that was something that I read about, being how people felt about him and his value to a clubhouse, was that he's able to connect, Spanish-speaking and English-speaking guys who otherwise maybe wouldn't be able to connect, because he's bilingual and fluent in English and Spanish. And so right away, you have Willy Adames connecting Devers to his teammates, I'm sure. And Adames is a happy-go-lucky guy, and Devers described himself as the same. And in Boston, I think they needed him or wanted him to be more like Willy Adames. And to me, the failure, there's multiple failures on the Red Sox part. Reading in depth into what went down in Boston, this is not just me speaking from a Giants fan's perspective. I kind of read what I consider to be a pretty neutral take on Fangraphs by Davey Andrews, who detailed, in great detail, he discussed the situation in Boston with Devers. And the article is called, and this was well before they traded him, "The Red Sox are pulling the wrong levers with Rafael Devers." And they get into the fact that, it's crazy. So they signed Devers to this 10-year, $313.5 million extension, notably no trade clause. But at the time, Devers was promised by then president of baseball operations Chaim Bloom, but Devers says it wasn't just Chaim Bloom. Like, Devers said that it was multiple people. There's so many quotes here. I'm not gonna be able to verbatim find exactly what I'm referring to, but he said, he was assured, I'm assuming by the team president, that's not the president of baseball operations, like the Larry Bear of the Red Sox, the owner, I'm just assuming, but it wasn't just Chaim Bloom assuring him. He's signing this huge 10-year deal, and he was assured he would get to play third for that he was just going to be their third baseman forever, and maybe one day not, but at least not in the short term, to expect him to change positions. But they did, and it all went down in the worst way. It was very similar and reminiscent of the Brandon Crawford, Carlos Correa miscommunication, or just lack of communication, that we saw here when Farhan Zaidi and company didn't talk to Crawford about signing Correa until after it happened, and then said, "You're not going to play shortstop anymore." But this was even worse, because even after the Red Sox, so first of all, before they signed Bregman, I may have said Correa, but Alex Bregman, a third baseman, this spring training, the manager, Alex Cora, was just adamant, saying third base was going to be Rafael Devers' position, and he didn't see that changing. And then after they signed Bregman, they continued to say that. And then a couple days later, they said, "You know what, never mind, Rafi, we're asking you to just be a DH." And he said no, because he said he felt like they had made him promises. He said, this is a quote this was the one I was talking about. He said, "That was definitely what was discussed when I signed." This is through an interpreter, by the way. "That I would be playing the position for a long time. I believe people's word, and I take it to heart. So it was very surprising that they would suggest that." Him moving off of third, I think this is what it's referencing, because believe it or not, this happens again with another position. "Since the beginning, I have known that this is a business, and I've known that each side is going to do what's comfortable to them. I don't think that is the right way to do business." So yeah, this was in reference to the third base situation. And then it got worse. And Alex Cora kind of said, "Different people here, right? There's a different leader here. Chaim is in St. Louis now." And it just got significantly worse as time went on, because this was all this year, when they signed Alex Bregman, asked Rafi Devers to move to DH, and he at first said no, but then he said fine. He eventually caved and gave in and said okay, even though he felt he had been promised that this wouldn't happen. And then he was promised that when he signed, and he was and they were repeating those lines in the offseason before Bregman signed and after Bregman signed. But then 2 days later, they changed their tune completely and asked him to move. And then eventually he said yes after saying no. And then the Red Sox first baseman, Tristan Casas, had a season-ending injury, and they approached Rafi Devers about, "Hey, actually, could you play first?" And he said this time, he just said, "No, I cannot be so flexible. You guys," he said he was told in clear terms, essentially, once he agreed that he would move off of third, "You can just put away your glove. You're just going to DH. It's going to be great." and you don't even need a glove. Like, that's it. You're the DH. Get comfortable with that role. And then first baseman goes down, and suddenly, boom, hey, actually, never mind. Would you pick up the glove again and play first? And it felt like to him that it was just too much. It had crossed the line, and that he was being disrespected and like lied to, kind of, by the people in charge of the Red Sox. And he started saying some things publicly, and then they like flew their owner out to meet with him and the team president and the GM. It got personal. Some of the things that were discussed. I mean, gosh, just reading this article, I highly encourage you. There's too much to even quote here, but again, it's called "The Red Sox Are Pulling the Wrong Levers with Rafael Devers." And so, yeah, I mean, it all kind of broke down, and that ultimately is why the Red Sox decided to move him. There's probably some, on an ownership level, desire to get rid. They probably felt like, we're cutting these huge checks to this guy, and he's not willing to do what we tell him to do, and he needs to listen to us. I watched the Red Sox press conference, which they held on Zoom, discussing this trade. I watched it in its entirety. It's like 40 minutes. And they just kept saying we could not achieve alignment. We couldn't get alignment. It was like clear they had consulted a PR disaster firm to deal with this situation, because they had all these lines that they just kept repeating. And there was some stuff that was totally nonsensical that was said. I had to plug it into ChatGPT even and be like, please try to make sense of this. And ChatGPT was like, this doesn't make any sense. He's contradicting himself. So it's kind of wild the more that I read into this. And so when I'm trying to find the quote because they're juicy. Yeah, I mean, even after Casas got hurt, they asked the manager if they would consider asking Rafi to play first. And he said, no, we made a decision. We talked to him. He's a DH. I like Rafi as DH. In my opinion, to throw something at him right now, it would be very unfair. And then the author of this article says, would you like to guess what happened next? And it was, in fact, that they did ask him to play first after he said it would be very unfair to throw something like that at him right now. And then they threw it at him like right afterwards. So it just happened again where they just went against their word. And that was what he said. He said, it's right here. I'm not sure why they want me to be in between the way they have been. There's even a juicier quote here. It was just the GM that I spoke with. He didn't even mention him by name. I'm not sure what issue he has with me. He played ball, and I would like to think he knows that changing positions isn't easy. They put me in this situation, and they told me that they didn't want to allow me to play any other position. And now I think they should do their jobs, essentially, and hit the market and look for another player for first base. I'm not sure why they want me to be in between the way they have been. And then when asked if he would reconsider playing first base, he said, quote, I don't think so. They told me I'm a little hard-headed. They already asked me to change once. That was from third to DH. And this time, I don't think I can be as flexible. And that was when the whole thing broke down, and that this, I guess, became inevitable that he was going to be moved. And to me, it's the Red Sox fault. Devers, I guess, holds some blame, but also it's hard to blame him. And here he comes in and immediately says, when asked by a member of the media, where are you going to play? And he's like, I'll play wherever they want me to play. And so I'm going to explain why that actually makes sense. And then also some more comments from that Red Sox press conference where, in my opinion, they have like a culture issue and they think it's Devers' fault, but in fact, it's something that's not. And I will explain what I mean by that in just a minute and before we get into it. Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this. And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. Open Phone is offering Locked On Giants listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, here we go. We're going to try our best to make sense of the end of Rafi Devers' time with the Boston Red Sox. Explain why I really feel like I'm not being biased here. The Red Sox blundered this, and their blunder is the Giants' gain, in my humble opinion. We haven't even really got into my feelings about people's perception that this is like an underwater contract. It was even mentioned by Greg Johnson, who's the one writing the checks essentially. And he mentioned the guys that I've been mentioning as comps, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And he mentioned Juan Soto's crazy high average annual value and $765 million contract. But Vlad, I think, is a better comp. And he mentioned that those guys are being paid till they're 40, and that's not the case with Devers. This contract is over after his age 36 season. And also Jordan Hicks offsets some of the money, and that's not talked about enough as well. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow, breaking down Devers' first game as a member of the Giants. I'm just so ecstatic to see him in the lineup. It's franchise-altering presence in the lineup. And, oh, man, I mean, he hits the ball all over the field. He hits the ball with authority all over the field. To center field, he's going to gain homers to center field because he hits a lot of balls to center that get out at Fenway, which has a much deeper center and a high wall in center. And here, it's only 391, the shortest center field in all of baseball. So we'll see. He also pulls some balls right down the line. So we should see Cove shots for 8.5 years here with Rafi Devers. Very exciting. But ultimately, what I'm getting at with the Red Sox press conference is that Craig Breslow, who is a former player, and that's what Devers was saying, it was like, he's a former player. I would think he should understand. But what it was about broken promises and kind of saying one thing and then doing another. And that is not what you should ever expect from Buster Posey. Just point blank, that is not what you should ever expect from Buster Posey. And that makes a difference to players. Willy Adames said, "Why did you sign here?" He said, "Buster Posey." And Rafael Devers, like, if you were to ask him, like, "Why are you happy here?" He'll probably say, "I love Willy Adames." He did. He mentioned it multiple times. Willy Adames is just a happy guy, and I'm a happy guy, and it's just gonna be awesome, man. The Giants haven't had like personality like this, impact like this in a long time, and I think he's gonna come to love Buster Posey. And the expression of a willingness to play anywhere was because, and just goes to show you that it wasn't about being hard-headed. It was about the broken promises. It's clear. It was about, he felt like he was promised something and that they went back on it, and he felt personally slighted by the Red Sox. The Giants haven't done any of that. It's a clean slate. They haven't told him, "You're just going to do this." And they're going to be open and honest with him, and they're going to stay true to their word so long as Buster Posey is in charge. And so that makes a huge difference. And it's been less than a year, and we're seeing this play out over and over again in some critical ways. And I mean, perhaps even the Matt Chapman extension has something to do with Buster Posey's involvement as well. In fact, it was reported that it did. So I'm just over the moon about this acquisition. And like the, you know, anyway, we'll get into the money and the return and all that, but it was a relatively weak return, even though you did give up Kyle Harrison. You're getting a top bat. And Greg Johnson was asked, if you were not willing to take on all of this deal, do you think you'd be introducing Rafael Devers today? That was a great question by Alex Pavlovich. Kind of a low-key, like really important insight into the Red Sox and their motivation. Johnson hesitated and he was just like, no, which means the Red Sox were motivated only to move Devers if somebody took all of the money, which means that was part of it from Red Sox ownership's perspective. And it weakened the return. That's why the return doesn't look overwhelming, even though we love Kyle Harrison and it's sad to see him go. Taking on all of the money means giving up less in player capital, and that's a win for the Giants because it's not our money, but they are, in a sense, our players. They're the ones we're rooting for. We're not rooting for savings for the ownership group, right? So it sucks to lose Harrison, but at the same time, if the Red Sox ate like $100 million, you'd have to give up a lot more to get Devers here. So lastly, like watching that Red Sox press conference, it was evident they're like, they were just like saying these things that were very insulting to Devers, like kind of passive aggressive almost. Like they weren't being direct. They were just saying things that insinuated things, basically saying we've got a lot of young players and we're very deliberate about creating an environment of intense. It's just all this like GM speak that just doesn't sit right with me. And a lot of that is that it reminds me of some of the failings of the previous front office here. Even though Craig Breslow is a former player. So that's a little surprising, but just, what they were missing was a fun, loose clubhouse where people were pulling on the same rope, and they created some of that with what they did to Devers. And also they didn't like, if you had brought in a Willy Adames, I think that makes a big difference. And you have a guy like Posey running the show where you're letting players be players. And so they wanted Devers to be more like Willy Adames, but that's not really him. He wants to kind of blend in, I think, and just have fun and be laid back. And then he also felt slighted. And so that's what led to this. But for the Giants, I don't think it's not going to be a problem. Devers said he would play anywhere, including first, and would hit anywhere in the lineup. And he doesn't need to be anything personality-wise. Like we don't, as fans, need him to be anything. We just are happy to go see him play. And you've got your vocal leaders already in place. Matt Chapman, Willy Adames, and others, Logan Webb, already in place. And Devers can just hang out and be a dude in the lineup, and all is well in Giants land. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thanks in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.